Part D, data import. Now, what this is let's imagine that you've had your station for several years and you obviously already have some data. And you would like to have this data available in your template so that you don't have to start from scratch and just have an empty database. So for that reason, I created these importing scripts, which allow you to basically import data from other sources. And there are several options. As you will see, it's very flexible. So it supports almost every common software used, ones like Weather Display, Cumulus, as well as importing data directly from Weather Underground. So if you have data there, it's also an option to import it. And I will show you how to do it. We will already use the admin panel and control panel using the admin section. We will get to that. One thing I want to say, however, is that before you do this, you want to make sure that your data is in some decent interval. What I mean by that is that I've seen people trying to import data which were, for example, in daily intervals. In other words, they had one value for one day, and that obviously is not enough. Because one thing I want to say is that your database will use 5 minutes and 5-minute interval. And if your data was if this data that you want to import was in 30-minute interval, I would probably recommend not using it because it's going to bias your statistics. Your statistics are not going to be correct, accurate, because they're going to be treated, all the values are treated as if they had the same interval. So those of you probably know what I mean when I say that. So that's the first thing. So what we have to do now is we're basically ready to go to our home page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my testing version. So you will see something like this. This is already set up, so you will not see these blocks here, and you probably don't have a menu yet, but we will create one. So whenever you want to access your control panel as an admin, it's this button here. And as you can see, I have this user icon. And the reason I have this user icon here is because I'm already logged in. And as I've told you in the last videos, you are always logged in if you already logged in. If you log in, it's saved until you close the browser. And in my case, I actually saved it. I clicked the Remember Me option, so I no longer have to log in. I'm logged in automatically because there's a cookie saved on my computer on this local machine that logs me in. And whenever you logged in as an admin, you know it because you see this user here. And I will show you what it looks like if I'm logged out. You would see this is the log out button. So if I click that logged out button, here I would see like a key saying that I have to log in. And if I click that key, I would get to a login page where I would have to specify the password. So I will show what I mean. If I log out, we see this key. And if I click that, it wants me to log in. It's no longer possible to access this site. And if I now, for example, try the setup page here, it won't load. And here you specify the password, and if I click this, it will remember me. Okay, and if the password is correct, this is your control panel. This is what you use to control your template. This is the main control panel. And I'll get to all these icons here. So first thing is this main setup. This is the page you've already seen. This is how you now get to this page. And this is the only way you can get to it. If you just try typing it here, unless you're logged in, it will not allow you to go in. And I can show you what I mean. Look, if I now put install setup unauthorized access, so you can no longer use this. So I have to go here, I have to log in, I'll click the Remember Me option, and now I can go there via this link. So now we want to do the import. So as I said, we'll talk about menu later, plugins, info pages. We'll get to all that. Database updates, that's going to be the next part. And here we see the data import. So we click the data import. Now, obviously, if you do not want to import anything, if you do not have this, if you do not have any data to import, if you just want to start from scratch, then you can simply ignore this and go to the next part. You don't have to even watch this video. You can just go to the next part, go to the update setup in the wiki. So now you have to choose. You have two options. You can either import data directly from some text file. So if you have some log files, that's what you would use. Or, as I said, it's possible to import data from Weather Underground if you have data there. So let's go through the Weather Underground first because it's easier. In this case, all you have to do is provide your Weather Underground ID. It looks something like this. For example, mine looks like this. So that would be your Weather Underground ID. Now here, you basically have to tell the template what fields correspond to the particular values. Now obviously you're saying, okay, well, how should I know? Well, it's easy. If you provided your correct, sorry, it should be like this, I think, your correct Weather Underground ID here, and then you click Show Field Numbers. And look what I get. I get this new page. And first of all, you want to check if you have a message that nothing was loaded, if nothing appears here, then something's wrong. Then it means that your server is not able to communicate with Weather Underground, and it's trying two different methods to retrieve data. And if your server does not support either of them, then you will not get any data. But if that was the case, you would probably get an error in the setup page where it checks your server settings. Now I have my server set up correctly, and so it loaded the data from my station, but it didn't load the data as such, it just loaded the fields. And what you can see here is this is the field number, these are the field numbers, and these are the variables and their units. And as you can see here it's asking me temperature. What field number is it, and what units is it using? Because this is different for every user, so you have to tell the template so that it knows which field it should use to save to your database as temperature, and it also has to know what units it has, because it will automatically convert them to the database units that you specified in the main settings. So if in the main settings I have Celsius, then it's just going to use this number. If I had Fahrenheit, then if this number was in Fahrenheit, then because I have my database units set to Celsius, it would convert it. It would apply a conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius to that number before saving it to the database. So I'll just leave that like this. And okay, let's just try a few. So temperature. Well, it's field number 1, and it's in temperature C. So we put in here, we put 1 and degrees Celsius. Humidity. Okay, we go back here. We search for humidity. Here it is, 8. So we put in 8, and units, yeah, that's percentage, because that's the only unit available. And pressure, again, we go here, we look for pressure, and it says pressure HPA. It's field number 3, so we put in 3, and we have HPA, hectopascals. Wind speed, that would be this, wind speed kilometers per hour. Here's wind gust. It's pretty much easy. Cumulative daily precipitation, that's simply daily rain, and we see that it's in millimeters, so again we make sure here we have millimeters. Rain rate, in case of Weather Underground, it's called hourly precipitation. That would be here. Again, we have millimeters, so that would be here. Wind direction, that's here. Wind direction, and it's in degrees. Yes, so we put in here. We would put in where is it? Here, field number 5. So make sure you fill in all these fields. Solar radiation. If you disabled solar sensor in the main settings, then you can just leave it blank. So make sure you do that, because otherwise it's going to throw an error. But you would see, as you can see, I don't have any solar sensor. I don't have one, so I don't even see it here in the list. So there's obviously nothing I could put here anyway. So I just leave it like that. Now, I highly recommend you read this paragraph, but I'm just going to summarize it quickly. What this script will do is it will go and it will connect to Weather Underground, and it will try to download all data from that server. Unfortunately, Weather Underground provides data on a daily basis. In other words, each page always has it uses the XML feed, and it has always data for 1 day. So what the script has to do is go one by one. So if I say I want to import, let's say, everything from year 2016, it would have to load data from one page, and it would load data for 1st of January. Then it would go to the next page, load data from 2nd of January. This obviously takes time, and it's more dependent on the speed of Weather Underground, which is not amazing. So in this setup, you set up the interval which you want to import. And it's up to you to basically test this, but I would not go for anything longer than 1 year. And if the script does not run till the end, you would get a message. You would see what I mean. You just read this, and so for now I just put in, let's say I want to import everything from January 2015 to 2016, December. Oh no, that's too much. So let's just do January 1st. This would import that 1 year. Also make sure that you have data for that year at Weather Underground. Obviously, if you have no data, it would just not import any. And here, import type, you can specify if you tell the script what should it do if there is a record that already exists. So you can either skip it. So it means that if, for example, you're importing something and you already have those values there, you just want to add some new, you just want to fill in gaps, you would probably choose skip existing. And what it will do is, if there is a clash in the date and time field, if there's a same date and time field found already present in your database, it's just going to skip that. So it's going to keep your original value that you had in your database. Whereas if I click overwrite, you can probably guess what it's going to do. It's going to overwrite the original value. So if now I was importing something that already was in my database, then whatever was in my database will be deleted and will be replaced by the new value that I imported. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fill in the rest of the fields. So wind speed, wind gust, just to show you how to do this. So I'm just going to put 6, 7, cumulative daily precipitation, that would be 12, and my hourly rain is 9. So I put in 9 here. Sorry about that. So now this is what you would have. I have all my units correctly, and I have my dates. So now I click, before we import the data, we want to make sure that it works fine. So we just click test import. Okay, and now what it did is it basically tried to load one record just to see if it works. So because I selected from 1st of January 2015, it loaded the first record that it found for January 2015. And as it says here, errors are highlighted in red. So if you see something in red here, something's wrong. And as you can see, I have everything okay. It says what values it would import. It tells me that the raw value for temperature was minus 6.2. The database temperature units, the Weather Underground temperature units, and the same units. So it says same units, no need to do any conversion. So this is what will be inserted into the database. For humidity, we don't have any conversions, and it goes on for all the other parameters. And then it tells me, then it checks the limits. So if my value, whatever value was outside the limits that you provided in the main setup, the allowed interval for each of the values, then it would show you an error, and it would not insert it into the database. It would ignore that value. But as you can see, I have everything okay, and the template automatically calculates dew point and apparent temperature based on these values, if they're available, of course. And here's a summary of what the first record inserted into the database would look like. So in this case, the first thing it would insert would be January. I have data on Weather Underground for midnight, so that's the first value, and this is what would be inserted into the database. And I see that it's correct. Now let me show you what happens. Let's say that I make a mistake or something's wrong, and I put in for the temperature. Okay, let's just put some nonsense. So let's just put field 10. Sorry, field 18. There is no such field. Just want to show you what's going to happen. And I hit test import. And in this case, yes, it just takes it as 0. Sorry, but if this value, let's say Okay, let's say for the wind speed, I put in wall 1, which is temperature, and temperature and wind speed obviously cannot be negative, so it should throw an error now, and it does. It tells you wind speed is outside the allowed limits, and so wind speed value will be ignored. And we see it here. It tells you that there's an error, and there's also an error for the apparent temperature, because that's related to the wind speed error, because for the apparent temperature calculation, you need wind speed. So because we don't have wind speed available, this calculation could not be performed. So in this particular case, it would only say these values, the black ones, but the wind speed and apparent temperature would be missing for this particular row in the table. So you want to make sure that when you click the test import, everything is black as you've seen before. And when we're done with that, just hit the import data. I'm not going to do it now because it's rather slow, but one thing I want to emphasize is make absolutely sure that you wait until the script ends. It will take quite a while, and what will happen is you will see a page, and the page will be loading. You will see this page loading, you will see that spinning icon in your browser, and make sure that you wait until the page runs till the end. Just wait until it completely loads, don't do anything. And in case that it will actually be displaying on the screen, it will be showing you the current record that's being imported. And if it just runs out of time, if it times out, if you see at the end that it did not run until January, until the interval that you specified it to, then it means that it was just the server at Weather Underground was too slow, or your server was too slow. And in that case, you would simply look what was the last record that it imported, and then you would take the last date and you would put it to from, and you would specify another 2. So in other words, you would go in steps. So that's for the Weather Underground. And I guess I will go through the data imports using a text file in the next video.